Imagine this. You've finally bought your dream lake cabin, a peaceful retreat to escape the daily grind. But instead of relaxation, you're faced with constant harassment 5 separate times. The police show up at your door, all because of your homeowners association. Now, what if I told you I'm not just any cabin owner, I'm a judge, and I fought back? Hard. This isn't just a story about a dispute with an HOA. It's about standing up for your rights when those supposed to protect community harmony overstep their bounds. From the outside, it might sound like a simple clash between a homeowner and a neighborhood group, but it spiraled into something much bigger. The HOA kept pushing, sending cops to my cabin repeatedly, creating tension and stress where there should have been peace. Every visit felt like an invasion, a challenge not just to my property rights, but to my very sense of justice. It made me realize how powerful these associations can be, and how easily they can misuse their authority as a judge. I'm used to seeing disputes from the bench, but being on the other side of the courtroom was a different experience altogether. I had to navigate not just legal complexities, but also the emotional weight of defending my home against relentless intimidation. This story isn't just about Mitts, about anyone who's ever felt powerless against an HOA's unfair tactics. What happened next changed everything. The fight wasn't just about a cabin or finds it became a battle over principles, fairness, and standing up for what's right. I took them to court, and the case went far beyond what anyone expected. But before I get into the lawsuit and how I sued them into the ground, you need to hear what led to those 5 police visits and why it all started in the first place. The trouble all started shortly after I bought the cabin. It was supposed to be my little escape from the noise of the city, a place where I could unwind and enjoy nature. But soon after moving in, I began getting letters from the HOA warnings about minor things, like the way I parked my car or the angle of my porch railing. At first, I thought it was just typical neighborhood rules stuff. But the tone quickly shifted from polite reminders to aggressive demands, and that's when the problems really began. One day, out of the blue, I heard sirens. Police officers showed up at my cabin, saying the HOA had called them, claiming I was violating some obscure rule. It felt surreal me, a judge sworn to uphold the law, being treated like a troublemaker at my own property. And that was only the first visit. Over the next few weeks, the police came 4 more times, each time based on complaints from the HOA. It was like living under a cloud of suspicion, even though I was following the rules. What made it worse was how the HOA wielded their power. They seemed to know how to push buttons, and they weren't shy about using threats or legal jargon to intimidate me. It was clear they wanted to wear me down, hoping I'd give up or move away. But I'm not someone who backs down easily, especially when I know I'm right. The conflict wasn't just about rules or regulations, it was about control, respect, and fairness. As the tension grew, so did my determination to fight back. But I knew it wouldn't be simple. The HOA had resources and connections, and this was turning into more than just a neighborly disagreement. It was a test of will, and I was ready to see it through. But what I discovered as I dug deeper would shock me and change the whole game as the police visits kept happening. I started to realize this was more than just a misunderstanding or a few bad neighbors. The HOA wasn't just enforcing rules, they were targeting me. At times, it felt like a coordinated campaign designed to make life unbearable. I began talking to other cabin owners in the community, hoping to find some allies or at least understand if anyone else had faced similar treatment. Some nodded quietly, sharing stories about strict fines, endless paperwork, and the pressure to comply with rules that seemed arbitrary. Others, however, kept their distance, wary of crossing the HOA. One of the most frustrating parts was how the HOA board operated behind closed doors. They had a group of volunteers who seemed to have more interest in control than community. Their meetings were private, their decisions often unclear, and their communication selective. I tried attending a few meetings, hoping to raise concerns, but was met with cold shoulders and vague responses. It was obvious they didn't want questions or challenges, especially not from someone like me. Meanwhile, the police visits continued, to create tension with my family and neighbors. My wife worried about the stress, and my kids started asking questions I wasn't ready to answer. The peaceful lake cabin was becoming a source of anxiety instead of relief. It wasn't just about the law anymore. It was about protecting my family's peace and my own sense of justice. I began gathering documents, recording every interaction, and researching HOA laws, looking for any loopholes or protections. As a judge, I knew the legal system well, but I also understood that HOAs often operate in a gray area with rules that can be bent or exploited. It was clear I'd have to prepare for a serious battle. What I didn't expect was how deep this conflict would go. The more I looked, the more I found about the HOA's questionable practices, some of which raised serious ethical questions. But exposing those wouldn't be easy, and it could make things even worse before they got better. The fight was just getting started. As the days passed, the pressure from the HOA only intensified. Every small step I took seemed to trigger another complaint, another visit from the police, another wave of tension crashing over my family and me. The once peaceful cabin was now a battleground, and the people I expected to be neighbors had become adversaries. I could feel the eyes of the community on me, some curious, some skeptical, and others openly hostile. One night, after a particularly aggressive visit from the officers, I sat at my kitchen table, surrounded by stacks of HOA letters, meeting notes, and legal documents. The weight of it all pressed down like a storm ready to break. I knew I had to take a stand, but I also understood that fighting an HOA was like stepping into a maze without clear paths. Their influence was strong, and their network seemed tight. I wasn't just up against a few individuals, I was up against a system designed to protect itself. At the same time, whispers started spreading about my intentions to sue. Some neighbors warned me to be careful, hinting that HOAs have ways of making life even harder for those who oppose them. Others quietly supported me, offering stories of their own battles and encouragement. It was a strange mix of isolation and solidarity. The HOA board's demeanor changed too. Meetings became more confrontational, and their communications took on a sharper tone. They sent formal letters accusing me of violating rules I hadn't even heard of, and rumors circulated about fines and liens. The police presence, though less frequent, still lingered like a shadow. With everything escalating, I realized that this wasn't just about my cabin anymore. It was about standing up to unfair power, about fighting for fairness and respect. The stakes were higher than ever, and the tension was unbearable. What happened next would push me to my limits, force me to make decisions that would change everything. Just when I thought I had a clear picture of the HOA's tactics and was preparing my next move, something unexpected happened that changed everything. One afternoon, I received an anonymous tip-in email containing internal HOA documents that revealed much more than petty rule enforcement. These papers showed that the HOA board had been hiding serious financial mismanagement and had been selectively targeting certain homeowners, including me, to cover up their mistakes. Suddenly, this wasn't just a personal fight anymore. It was a scandal that threatened to shake the entire community. The documents suggested that some board members were using HOA funds in ways that were not only unethical, but potentially illegal. Worse, they seemed to be weaponizing the HOA's power to silence anyone who questioned them. The police visits, the fines, the constant harassment, it all felt like part of a larger plan to protect their secrets rather than uphold neighborhood standards. This revelation threw the conflict into a new light and raised the stakes dramatically. I was no longer just defending my property or standing up against unfair rules. I was now uncovering a deeper corruption that affected every resident. But exposing this wouldn't be easy. The HOA had already shown they could be ruthless, and now I was poking a hornet's nest at the same time. Rumors began swirling that the HOA was preparing to retaliate with a lawsuit against me. They claimed I had violated covenants and created disturbances, but I knew this was just another tactic to intimidate me into silence. The tension grew, and the peaceful lake cabin felt further away than ever, caught between fighting back against an unjust HOA and exposing a possible scandal. I realized this battle was far from over. The next moves would test not only my legal skills, but also my resolve. What would happen when the HOA pushed back harder than ever? The story was reaching a boiling point, and no one could predict what would come next. As the pressure mounted, I knew it was time to take the fight where it truly mattered inside a courtroom. With the evidence in hand, I filed a lawsuit against the HOA, not just for the harassment and false complaints, but for the deeper corruption I'd uncovered. The courtroom became my battleground, and for the first time, the community could see what was really going on behind closed doors. The HOA board, confident they could intimidate me into backing down, were suddenly on the defensive. The legal battle was intense. Days in court felt like a war of wills, with heated arguments and surprising revelations. Witnesses came forward, documents were scrutinized, and the truth about the mismanagement and abuse of power came to light. The judge, recognizing the severity of the HOA's misconduct, sided firmly with me. Not only did I win the case, but the HOA was ordered to make significant reforms, reimburse my legal fees, and officially apologize for their actions. The victory felt like justice served not just for me, but for the entire community that had suffered in silence. Peace finally returned to my lake cabin, and my family breathed a sigh of relief. But just when I thought the nightmare was over, an unexpected twist emerged. As the HOA began restructuring, a whistleblower from inside the board reached out privately, revealing that the corruption went deeper than we had imagined, spilling into local politics and involving influential figures beyond the neighborhood. This revelation meant the fight wasn't over. The cabin, once a place of escape, had turned into the starting point of a much larger battle for truth and accountability. I realized standing up once had led to uncovering a hidden network of power, and now I faced a new choice: walk away or keep fighting. The story didn't end with the courtroom victory. It was only the beginning. After the courtroom battle, things slowly began to settle. The HOA was forced to clean up its act, and the harassment stopped. Peace returned to my lake cabin, the place that had become a symbol of the fight for fairness and respect. The community, once divided by fear and suspicion, started to heal. Some neighbors reached out to apologize for staying silent, and others expressed gratitude for standing up to the system they felt powerless against. It was clear that this wasn't just my victory, it was a win for everyone who had ever felt bullied by an unfair HOA. Looking back, the experience taught me a lot about the balance of power and the importance of knowing your rights. Even when facing organizations with deep pockets and influence, standing firm with facts and determination can make a real difference. It also reminded me how critical transparency and accountability are, not just in the legal system, but in every community. Though the fight was exhausting and stressful, it strengthened my belief that justice isn't just about laws on paper, about people standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. My family found peace again, and I was able to enjoy the cabin as I originally intended to, place to relax and connect with nature. The HOA ordeal is a cautionary tale for anyone dealing with these powerful neighborhood groups. Don't let intimidation silence you. Understand your rights, document everything, and if necessary, don't be afraid to fight back. Sometimes, the quiet lake cabin can become the front line for bigger battles about fairness and respect. In the end, what started as repeated police visits and endless conflict became a story about resilience, justice, and the power of standing up for yourself. My fight with the HOA wasn't just about a property dispute. It was about protecting a community's heart and making sure everyone has a voice.